They called him a monster, an arsonist, a madman who watched Rome burn while playing his lyre. But was Emperor Nero really the villain history remembers? Or just the last survivor of a deadly Roman game? This is the story of Nero Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, the emperor who ruled with vanity, paranoia, and fire. Subscribe to UTAK Diaries, where we dig into the lives of the most brutal, bizarre, and unforgettable figures in history. Nero's path to power was paved in manipulation and murder. Born in 37 CE, as Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, he was the son of Agrippina the Younger, an ambitious woman from Rome's most dangerous bloodline. She was the great-granddaughter of Augustus, sister of Emperor Caligula, and niece of Emperor Claudius. Her mission: put Nero on the throne at any cost. Agrippina married her own uncle, Emperor Claudius, and convinced him to adopt Nero as heir over his own biological son. Not long after, Claudius conveniently died, poisoned, many believed, by Agrippina herself. And at just 16 years old, Nero became emperor of the Roman Empire. At first, Nero ruled with surprising grace. Or rather, his mother and advisors ruled for him. The philosopher Seneca and military commander Burrus guided his early decisions, keeping him from excess. But Nero was no statesman. He wanted to be loved, not feared. He fancied himself a poet, an actor, a musician. He despised the seriousness of ruling and craved applause more than power. Soon, Nero began performing in public, a shocking move for a Roman emperor. He sang, acted, and played the lyre on stage, forcing senators and citizens to endure hours of performances they couldn't criticize. To Nero, art was divine, and he was the god behind it. But behind the scenes, things were rotting. His relationship with Agrippina soured as she tried to control him. She scolded his affairs, including with a former slave named Octa. Nero responded like a true Roman emperor, with violence. Agrippina had overstepped, and Nero had had enough. First, he tried to kill her with a collapsing ceiling. She survived. Then, a sabotaged boat, which conveniently fell apart at sea, but Agrippina swam to shore. Finally, Nero sent assassins to finish the job. They stabbed her in her villa. It's said her last words were, "Strike the womb that bore him." Her death marked Nero's descent. With Agrippina gone, the guardrails vanished. He executed his wife, Octavia, then married Poppaea Sabina, a woman he would later kick to death while she was pregnant. Paranoia consumed him. Senators, nobles, even artists he once admired were executed for imagined plots. Torture and blackmail became routine. Rome wasn't ruled by law anymore. It was ruled by Nero's mood. Then came the fire that defined him. In July of 64 CE, a massive blaze broke out in the slums near the Circus Maximus. It raged for 6 days and 7 nights, destroying nearly 3/4 of the city. And where was Nero? Some accounts say he was at his palace, watching it all while playing his lyre, singing of Troy's destruction as Rome crumbled. Others claim he returned and helped coordinate relief efforts. But when the people began whispering, "Did Nero start the fire?" he panicked. He needed a scapegoat, and so he blamed the Christians, a strange sect that worshipped a single god and refused to honor Roman deities. Nero rounded them up, tortured them, fed them to lions, and burned them alive as human torches in his gardens. The fire gave Nero a reason to rebuild, and he did so with grandeur. He erected the Domus Aurea, or Golden House, a colossal pleasure palace with gold leaf walls, artificial lakes, and even a rotating dining room. It looked less like a city recovering, and more like a god crowning himself king of ash as Rome smoldered. Nero walked among the ashes like a god in a funeral pyre. His golden house sprawled across 200 acres. Gold ceilings shimmered, walls dripped with jewels and frescoes. In the grand atrium stood a 100-foot-tall bronze statue of himself as the sun god Apollo. He drained the empire's treasury to build it, raised taxes, looted temples, even demanded Greek-style games in his honor, forcing citizens to cheer as he recited poetry or raced chariots like a demigod. But the people were not inspired. They were starving, grieving, angry. His ego had eclipsed his reason. The Senate began turning on him. Governors in the provinces whispered rebellion. Nero's former allies, fearing for their own lives, began plotting his downfall. The illusion of divine rule was cracking. By 68 CE, Rome had had enough. Multiple rebellions erupted, led by generals who once bowed to Nero. The Senate declared him a public enemy. The Praetorian Guard, his own elite bodyguards, abandoned him. Alone and terrified, Nero fled the city disguised as a slave. He hid in the villa of a freedman. There, he received word that execution was imminent. "What an artist dies in me," he cried. "Not a soldier's farewell, but an actor's." As soldiers closed in, he couldn't bring himself to end it. His aide Epaphroditos helped him plunge a dagger into his throat. With that final gasp, the last emperor of the Julio-Claudian line was gone. He was 30 years old, but Rome would remember him as a tyrant, a madman, a destroyer, and perhaps, unfairly, as the one who lit the match. Was he a monster, or a man who simply wanted to be loved, in a world that worshipped blood over beauty? Either way, Rome burned, and Nero's name burned with it. They tried to erase their names. They tried to silence their stories. But here on UTAK Diaries, we remember. Subscribe for more stories history tried to bury. Because the past, it's not dead, it's just been silenced.